As language learners, we often strive for perfect pronunciation because how we sound is the first thing that people hear when we speak. Now, we're afraid that if we make a mistake, especially when it comes to pronunciation, our value will diminish and others will realize that maybe we're not as good as we say we are. But let's be honest, in many cases, English pronunciation makes no sense. Now, unlike some other phonetic languages that I've learned, like Spanish, for example, where words that are spelled in a particular way usually have a predictable sound, in English, words that are spelled the same way might sound different, like read and read, and words that are spelled different might sound the same, like vein and vein. Now, if this drives you crazy, you are not alone. Many English learners feel frustrated, wondering how they should learn pronunciation and what they can do to effectively improve. Well, in today's lesson, our Beyond Borders guests will share some of the best methods that you can use to improve your pronunciation. So get ready to be inspired. So, Idauza, in your opinion, where is the best place to start when it comes to practicing pronunciation?
Yeah, we'll start with listening. So the most effective technique in our universe is something called syllable shadowing. There's a way you can train your listening. I'll take that last sentence. There's a way you can train your listening. There's a way you can train your listening. There's a way you can train your listening. If I take that, you might be trained to listen for the words I'm saying. There is a way, right? But that's not what I'm saying. There's a way you can train your listening. There's a way you can train your listening. You can hear it as syllables. So what you would do is you'd practice maybe clapping along with it. There's a way you can train your listening. There's a way you can train your listening. That's too fast. So you can take the audio, put it in Audacity and slow it down. Getting people to sync with the rhythm of the speech with their bodies. So you can do it with your hands. There's a way you can train your listening. You can move your lips with it. All right, so it sounds weird stuff, but man, does it work. What you do is you just get English phrases, or you get whatever you're watching, and then you practice being in sync with it, with your own body, and paying attention and making the adjustments. You do that very specific, deliberate training for like 30 minutes a day. It has massive effects on listening comprehension. And here's why it works. Because you understand me for this reason. This is what babies are doing when we're kids. The most fundamental layer of speech is the rhythm. So that's the technique for listening comprehension. And I'll leave it at that because all the pronunciation things come out of that.
I totally agree. Practicing listening is fundamental to good pronunciation. Just as we memorize and understand songs and music by listening closely to the lyrics and other features, we can also master difficult words by listening carefully to their rhythm and the way that certain syllables sound. The key here is to listen carefully to how words are used. Break them down when practicing them until you're comfortable enough to start using them in conversation. So Mark Hancock has written 26 books on the subject of English pronunciation. So we could say that he is a bit of an expert. Now, Mark, what can learners do to help them remember the sound patterns of the words that they're learning?
Rhymes and raps are great for like drilling type work, practicing getting your mouth around it. And they also stick in the memory like a earworm, something which sticks in your memory. I mentioned before the shit and sheet difference, the E. So I'm just going to do a rap for you, which I often do, to focus on this difference in words like fit and feet, bit, beat, and so on. And it's got plenty of examples of these minimal pairs in it. So it goes like this. You won't get fit just sitting on a seat. If you want to get fit, got to get up on your feet. Don't fill that seat, got to move a little bit. Kick your feet to the beat, feel the heat. That's it. So you do things like that, you do it, and then you get students to repeat line after line with you, and then you get students to doing it where one half of the class say one line and the next say the next line. Different kinds of formats like that. But by the end, when they're walking home, hopefully this rhyme will be going round and round in their head like an earworm. And so it's the pronunciation points, then that it helps the student to fix them in their memory. So raps are really good for that. Raps, songs, poems, wordplay generally, these kind of things.
Now that's super interesting. So practicing with minimal pairs can help you to isolate and focus on those sounds that might be most difficult for you. So figure out what sounds are most difficult for you to pronounce, and then make a list of minimal pairs. And you can even find many of these lists online with a simple search. Print it out and put it somewhere that you'll see it all the time. And commit to practicing with minimal pairs for at least a few minutes every day. Now, as Mark said, songs, poetry, and raps are also great for this. Now, when I was in high school, I was lucky to have the opportunity to study abroad in a small village in Germany for 6 months. I had taken German classes at my school for 3 years. So I was feeling pretty confident that I would have a good base and would pick it up naturally as soon as I was in the country, surrounded by the language. But to my surprise, when I arrived, no one could understand me. Despite studying vocabulary and grammar for 3 years, my teacher never thought to focus on correct pronunciation. So I filtered my pronunciation naturally through English. And as an English teacher, I've seen that many learners make the same mistake. Why is it that this happens?
Sometimes the listener hears what they expect to hear. And so your teacher is saying ich, but you think that the teacher is saying ich. You somehow filter what the message that is coming in your ears. You filter it through your own language, and what emerges is something which is what fixes in your memory is actually a version, an anglicized version in this case of the other language. This happens a lot, and part of what pronunciation teaching is about helping students to hear objectively.
You know, that makes sense. So when learning a new language, especially when it comes to pronunciation, it's important that you set aside the rules and structures of your native language, as this can not only confuse you, but also delay your progress. Of course, as adults, it's not as easy to learn a new language without the interference of our native tongue, but it is important to be aware of this and consistently try to avoid the first language interference. So once you are familiar with the sounds you need to work on, a great way for you to train your mouth to pronounce the correct sounds is with tongue twisters. Hadar, are you ready to practice?
Yes.
She sells seashells by the seashore.
I saw a kitten eating chicken in the kitchen.
If two witches would watch two watches, which witch would watch which watch?
How many berries could a bearberry carry if a bearberry could carry berries?
Betty Botter bought some butter, but she said the butter's bitter. If I put it in my batter, it will make my batter bitter. But a bit of better butter will make my batter better. So 'twas better Betty Botter bought a bit of better butter.
Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. A peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked. If Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, where is the peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked? I know this one.
You know it by heart, right?
And I love this one. This one is really good for practicing the aspirated P, Peter, and the high E sound too.
That was really fun. Tongue twisters help the brain to control the tongue better, improving pronunciation and clarity. Anna, do you find it as effective for learners to be super strict on themselves when it comes to pronunciation?
I don't feel so. I am not very eloquent in my native language. And I make mistakes and I stumble over my words and I mispronounce words even in my native Ukrainian language. So it's not something supernatural for me. And I do this in English, and I have come to terms with this because I was really I was beating myself up over this. Like, you need to speak perfectly in English. You need to master this skill. But that was my mistake. I was too strict and too harsh on myself, and I was too hard on myself. And because of that, I had moments of disappointment and burning out. So I remember that I literally was so afraid to skip even a day of my learning routine because I was so afraid that I was going to lose any progress that I gained, or I was going to lose my skills. And that was so ridiculous.
Yeah, it is so important to keep the balance between working hard and being kind to yourself. because when you experience that much pressure, learning a language stops being enjoyable, and you run the risk of losing your motivation to keep learning. And finally, when it comes to pronunciation, is it important which accent learners choose to adopt?
If you enjoy learning English and if you enjoy working on your pronunciation and speaking with an American or British or whatever accent, just go for it. Just do it. You do you.
There you have it. Expert tips from our exceptional guests for improving your pronunciation fast on your own. Just to recap, they are: train your ears so that you can reproduce sounds. Learn with songs, rhymes, and raps. Don't listen with expectations. Focus on the sounds. Find fun ways to practice. Be kind to yourself. Acknowledge your effort. Don't worry about what others have to say. You do you. Thanks so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the interview. You can find all the mentioned links and resources from this show on the show notes at reallifeglobal.com. It is also linked in the description of this episode. If English fluency is important to you, then remember to check out our Real Life app, where you can practice listening to native speech and speak with other learners from around the world, while also discovering new cultures. In addition to that, you can get a full interactive transcript and vocabulary for this interview. You will find that linked in the description, or just search for Real Life English in the Apple App Store or Google Play Store. For now, remember that no matter what divides us, that which unites us is far greater. See you on the next show.